What if the voice telling you to quit went silent forever? What if the struggle you're facing right now isn't a sign to stop, but a signal that you're about to break through? You weren't given this pain to break you. You were given it to build you. This moment you're in, the pressure, the fatigue, the doubt, this is not your exit. This is your proving ground. Because no man has ever risen without first being broken. No empire has ever stood without storms. And no mind has ever been made of steel without first walking through fire. You say it's hard? Then good. That means it's working. This speech is not here to soothe you. I did not come to give you permission to stop. I came to wake up the force that lives beneath your weakness, the version of you that fights, that executes, that refuses to crawl back into comfort. Let the quitters quit. Let the fearful retreat. But you, don't you dare quit. You've come too far. You've survived too much. And everything you fought for waits just beyond this pain. So you don't stop here. You don't break here. You build here. Now stand up inside your own mind and let the world hear your silence louder than their noise. This is your hour. Let's begin. When the going gets hard, most men look for a way out. They begin to whisper lies to themselves. Maybe this wasn't meant for me. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I've done enough. But let me speak to the part of you that remembers who you were before the world taught you how to retreat. Pain is not your enemy. Pressure is not a sign to stop. Resistance is not a red light. It is a gatekeeper, a test, a sacred threshold that only the few, the builders, the doers, the deciders, will ever walk through. And the man who walks through it is not the same man who entered it. He is stronger, sharper, real. That's the purpose of hardship, to strip you down until all that remains is truth, until every excuse burns in the fire, until only the part of you that is unbreakable survives. Andrew Carnegie once told me something I never forgot. He said, "Adversity is the refining fire of destiny. It burns away the weak man. It leaves only the man who is ready to lead." Carnegie did not rise from privilege. He was a poor Scottish immigrant working in a telegraph office, earning almost nothing. But every hour he worked, he watched, he listened, he prepared. And when the opportunity came, he did not flinch. Because the fire he walked through, the long days, the uncertainty, the low pay, had already forged his mind. And here you are, in your own fire. And I ask you, what will this fire leave behind? Will it leave a man who folded under pressure? Or will it leave a man so focused, so steady, so commanding that the world has no choice but to move around him? Charles M. Schwab was no stranger to pressure. As the right hand of Carnegie, he faced the storms of industry, the roar of competition, the resistance of men who were older, richer, more experienced than he. But what set Schwab apart was not genius, it was resilience. He did not fold. He moved swiftly, decisively. He led from the front when others were shrinking in the shadows. I once asked him how he dealt with fear. He said, "Mr. Hill, fear is a fog, and a man must learn to walk forward even when he cannot see. You may not see your future clearly right now. You may be in the fog of fatigue, surrounded by doubt. But hear me clearly. You still walk. You still move. You still build. Because the man who waits for clarity will never lead. The man who says, 'I'll push when it's easier,' will never arrive." Let's talk of Henry Ford, a man who was told his vision was foolish, that the car was a novelty, that it would never replace the horse. Even his own engineers said his idea for an 8-cylinder engine couldn't be done. And you know what he told them? Build it anyway. He said it not once, but over and over again until they did. Because Ford understood something the average man never will, that when everything seems to resist you, it's not always the world testing you. It's your mind asking, "Do you really want this?" And you answer not with words, but with persistence, relentless execution, unbreakable identity. Ford didn't stop because it was hard. He became Ford because it was hard, and he kept going anyway. You think success comes with ease? You think the men who built nations, industries, inventions, movements, you think they did it with comfort? Number. They did it tired. They did it misunderstood. They did it surrounded by doubt from others and from themselves. But they moved anyway because they had made a decision and never once opened the door to retreat. Let me be clear with you. If you are tired right now, good. It means you've been in the arena. If you are doubting right now, good. It means you're pushing the boundaries of what you thought you were capable of. If you are under pressure, good. It means you're doing something that matters. But I will not let you quit, because quitting now is not just a betrayal of your goals. It is a betrayal of your identity. And I know the man you are becoming, the one who keeps showing up, the one who listens not to fear, but to vision, the one who would rather suffer for purpose than coast in mediocrity. Let the crowd rest, let them doubt, let them walk away when it gets heavy. But you do not get to quit, because this fire you are in, it is making you. And when you rise from it, when the world will know that you were not lucky, you were not gifted, you were not saved, you were forged. Keep going. Don't you dare quit. You must understand something now, perhaps more deeply than you ever have before. The pain you feel today is not a punishment. It is a process, a sacred rite of passage, a furnace that burns away the soft edges, the hesitations, the illusions, and leaves only iron. And yet, what do most men do when they feel that fire? They run. They look for comfort. They retreat to what is familiar. But you will not do that. You were not built to run. You were built to withstand. You were built to build. And nothing worthy has ever been built without cost. Let us speak plainly. There will be days when nothing goes your way, when the voices around you question everything you're doing, when even the small steps forward feel like dragging stone uphill. And on those days, the temptation will whisper, maybe I should pause. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should quit. But those whispers are not your voice. They are the voice of drift, the voice of old identity trying to drag you back to safety, to comfort, to the version of you that never finished anything. And you are done living like that. You must now speak louder than those whispers. You must say, no, I am not going anywhere. I may be tired, I may be stretched, but I am not broken. I will not fold, and I will not leave this chapter unfinished. This is the moment when your identity changes, not with a celebration, but with a choice. The choice to continue, the choice to carry the weight, even when your legs shake, the choice to not back down. When Abraham Lincoln was leading a nation through war, he was not greeted with applause. He was attacked from every side, mocked, slandered, betrayed. His cabinet questioned him. The people doubted him. The war dragged on longer than anyone expected. And still, he stood quiet, focused, unbending. He carried the burden of the nation, not because he was invincible, but because he had decided what must be done. He was not moved by noise. He was not swayed by fatigue. He was anchored to purpose. And that is what you must be now, anchored. Anchored to your mission, anchored to your future, anchored to the man you said you would become. There will be no applause for this decision, no audience watching, no instant reward. Just silence, and pain, and progress. But make no mistake, every day you push through this storm, you are building a life that no storm can shake. This is where you earn the crown, not when it's easy, not when you feel good, but now, when it's hard, when it's heavy, when every part of you wants to stop, and you don't. The man who continues when he could quit, he becomes undeniable. And here is what the world won't tell you. Most people give up just before the moment that would have changed everything. They were one conversation away, one client away, one new habit away, one more rep, one more call, one more sunrise of discipline, and they let it go. because the going got hard. Let this burn into your mind. You are not most people. You are not average. You do not operate on feelings. You do not follow ease. You follow purpose. You follow vision. You follow a code. And that code is carved into your spirit with words like relentless, resilient, ruthless. And that code does not include quitting. When Thomas Edison was working on the electric light, he failed thousands of times. He watched his materials explode. He watched people call him a fool. He watched his own team question the mission. But do you know what he never did? He never doubted the result. He had already decided what the end would be, and every failure was simply another confirmation of progress. That is how you must now view this moment in your life. It is not a defeat. It is not a wall. It is a passage. And you are walking through it, head up, eyes forward, heart full of decision. You do not stop when it's hard. You become harder. You do not retreat from resistance. You rise through it. You do not ask, will I make it? You say, watch me build this until there's no doubt left. And if no one claps, you keep going. If no one sees the work, you keep going. If no one believes in you, you believe. You execute. You finish. Because the fire you are in right now is temporary, but the strength it will leave in you, that will last forever. Keep going, and don't you dare quit. There will come a day when all this pressure, this pain, this fatigue, this loneliness will make sense. A day when the weight you carried becomes the strength you wear. When the silence you endured becomes the stillness in your soul. When the work you did in the dark becomes the light that others follow. But that day only comes to the man who refuses to lay down. It does not come to the clever. It does not come to the entitled. It comes to the one who kept going when there was no visible reward, who built when no one believed, who didn't ask how long will this take, but simply said, as long as it takes. Let us speak again of a man I studied more than any other, Andrew Carnegie. When he first arrived in America, he was a poor immigrant boy. He had nothing but hunger for knowledge, for opportunity, for greatness. He began as a messenger boy in a telegraph office. And do you think his path upward was paved with ease? He worked long hours. He sacrificed comfort. He was overlooked, underpaid, and doubted. But he continued. Each job he took, he gave more than was expected. Each obstacle he faced, he used as training. He endured the strain because he had a vision far greater than his conditions. And through relentless forward motion, through sacrifice without applause, he built an empire of steel and became the wealthiest man of his time. But more than his fortune, it was his example that matters. He showed us that greatness is not born, it is built. And it is built in silence, in sweat, in hard decisions, in perseverance when others would have crumbled. That same blood runs through you. That same fire exists in your mind. You are not just here to survive, you are here to build, to create, to lead. And the only way to fulfill that calling is to keep walking, especially when your legs shake, because this is where most men quit. They confuse pressure for punishment. They confuse discomfort with failure. They think hard means wrong. But nothing could be further from the truth. Hard means you're being forged. Hard means you've left the old self behind. Hard means you're in the middle of the mountain, and the peak is closer than you think. Let me remind you of Charles M. Schwab, who rose from a humble clerk to the president of U.S. Steel under Andrew Carnegie. Schwab was not the most brilliant man in the room, but he had one trait that made him invaluable. He never stopped producing. When others were paralyzed by doubt or waiting for perfect plans, Schwab moved. He acted. He led. And in times of chaos, he built. That's what makes a man irreplaceable. That's what makes a man immortal in the memory of history. Not how clever he was, not how smooth his path, but how he carried the burden without breaking. And you too will become that man if you refuse to let pressure become an excuse. Let me tell you now, with absolute certainty, that this storm will pass. This chapter will close. This weight will lift. But when it does, the real question will be, who did you become because of it? Did you fold? Did you wait? Did you whimper and wish for better days? Or did you rise? Did you decide that this would be the moment that made you unshakable? Say this with me now, and say it like a man who means it. I do not shrink under pressure. I am shaped by it. I do not run from pain. I rise through it. When the going gets hard, I go harder. These are not just words. They are your weapons. Use them. Use them in the morning when the weight returns. Use them at night when doubt creeps in. Use them when the old voice says, this is too much. Because that voice is not your future. It is your past, begging you to come back. But you've already left that man behind. And what stands ahead, if you stay the course, is a life so solid, so grounded, so unbreakable, that even fear itself will not dare knock again. Keep walking and don't slow down, and don't second guess, and don't you dare quit. Not now, not ever. There comes a point on the path of every builder when the world goes quiet. The applause stops. The results don't come. The progress slows to a crawl. And in that silence, a question echoes so loudly it drowns out everything else. Is this still worth it? This is the test that separates men who dabble from men who dominate, because everyone begins with fire. Everyone begins with a goal, but only a few continue when the results disappear and the struggle multiplies. It is here in the dark middle, in the days when momentum vanishes, that you are either forged or forgotten. Let me tell you something few will say plainly. The pain you're feeling is not a sign to quit. It is the sign you are finally in the process of becoming, not the version of you that begins things, but the version that finishes them. Not the man who makes plans, but the man who executes through resistance. When Thomas Edison was deep into his work on the electric light, he had already faced over 5,000 failures. The money was running dry. The media mocked him. His own workers questioned whether the idea would ever work. But Edison, he refused to give up the idea because the results hadn't arrived yet. Instead, he made the results inevitable by refusing to stop. When asked by a young reporter if he ever considered giving up, he said, "Young man, I have not failed. I've just found 5,000 ways that won't work." Understand what that means. He had already decided the outcome. He didn't need to see it. He chose it. That is what men of destiny do. They commit so deeply that reality has no choice but to align. And I tell you now, you must do the same. Stop asking whether you're on the right path just because it hurts. The right path hurts the most at first. It cuts away your weakness. It reveals your doubt. It drags every excuse into the light and dares you to keep going anyway. Henry Ford was not celebrated when he decided to create a vehicle for the common man. He was laughed at, attacked. Even his most trusted engineers said the project was impossible. But Ford, he did not seek their approval. He already saw the assembly line in his mind. He already felt the product in the hands of the people. And so when they told him it couldn't be done, he told them simply, "Build it anyway." That is power, that is clarity, and that is the standard you must hold yourself to now. This moment you're in, this pressure, this doubt, is the gate to everything you said you wanted. But most men never pass through it. They turn back. They tell themselves they'll try again when it's easier. They lie to themselves with phrases like, "It's just not the right time," or "Maybe this isn't meant for me." It is meant for you, but only if you finish what you started. Because dreams do not belong to the man who plans them. They belong to the man who suffers for them, who builds them when it's boring, who walks through the storm when the wind screams at him to turn back. Let me tell you what I learned from Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest executives of the industrial age. He once told me, "Mr. Hill, the men who run when things get hard don't realize they were 10 feet from the gold." And it's true. I watched it happen again and again. Men who were one decision away, one day away, one act of discipline away from the breakthrough, quit. And it wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because they lacked endurance. So I say to you now, endure. Endure the silence, endure the pressure, endure the unseen hours, because those who continue when it's hard are the only ones who deserve the reward when it arrives. Repeat after me, and say it like you mean it. I do not pause when it gets hard. I lean in. I do not seek escape. I seek mastery. Pain is not a reason to quit. It is proof that I am being rebuilt. Let these words live in your chest. Let them anchor you when the path grows cold. Let them become your rhythm, a rhythm that fear cannot disrupt. Because the man who keeps walking, even when the light disappears, even when the applause dies, even when no one believes, he does not just survive the storm. He becomes it. There is a secret the world rarely speaks aloud, a truth known only to the few who have stood on the edge of collapse and kept moving. Your greatest strength will always be revealed when you have no strength left. Not when you're motivated, not when you're winning, but when you're tired, alone, questioning everything. It is in those moments, when most men fold, that the man of destiny is shaped. You see, when the going gets hard, your old identity begins to die. The identity that sought comfort, that wanted quick results, that needed praise to keep going. That version of you cannot survive the pressure, and that's a gift, because pressure doesn't just break men, it purifies them. Let me tell you about Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln entered the White House, the country was already splintering. States were seceding. War was inevitable. Advisors wavered. Public confidence was low, and the weight of a divided nation sat squarely on his shoulders. But Lincoln didn't waver. He didn't look for easier answers or defer responsibility. He sat with the pressure. He carried the burden. And through that relentless endurance, he gave America its spine. He didn't become a giant because it was easy. He became one because he kept showing up when most men would have collapsed. That's the kind of man you must become now. You're not in this for a convenient victory. You're in this to evolve, to shed everything soft and fearful in you, and emerge as a man who leads his mind, commands his emotions, and moves with unwavering direction. Let me say this again. The going gets hard not to stop you, but to stretch you. You want courage? It's built when your hands shake and you move anyway. You want discipline? It's forged when your body says rest and your mind says one more. You want belief? It is grown by continuing through days when your thoughts try to betray you. Andrew Carnegie, the man who shaped my understanding of wealth and will, once told me, no man becomes powerful until he no longer requires things to be easy. He meant this, truly meant it. He didn't seek the path of least resistance. He chose the path that demanded his entire being, because he knew it was there and only there that his greatness would rise. He told me, the mountain does not grow smaller. You grow stronger. And you, my friend, are growing stronger now, even if you don't feel it yet. So let us make this practical. When the going gets hard, and it will, here is what you do. You do not retreat. You take one small action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's invisible to the world. Action, not motivation, is your lifeline. You return to your aim, revisit your definite purpose, read it aloud, reconnect to your mission. Fear multiplies in men who forget why they started. You eliminate the noise. Don't explain your fatigue to anyone. Don't seek comfort from people who've never built anything. Sit in silence and remember who you are. You rehearse your power, repeat it. I was made for this. Say it with certainty, not because you feel strong, but because you decide to be. And then you continue. You continue when no one's watching. You continue when the applause stops. You continue when fear whispers, maybe this isn't worth it. Because your consistency in pain, in pressure, in silence, is the evidence that you are becoming a man this world cannot break. So let me leave you with this. Say it out loud, with force, with fire, with no hesitation. I am not done. I am not finished. I do not quit. I rise. Because the man who becomes unstoppable is not the one who starts fast. He is the one who refuses to stop no matter how slow the path becomes. And that man is you. There will come a moment in every man's journey, a quiet, almost invisible moment, when the pain becomes louder than the progress, when the goal you once shouted with certainty now feels like a whisper beneath the weight of struggle. That moment is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are nearing the threshold where most turn back and the few press forward. Let me be clear. Pain is not the enemy. The enemy is comfort, the seductive whisper that tells you to settle, to ease up, to coast. Comfort is the true killer of greatness because it doesn't arrive like a storm. It shows up like a warm bed on a cold morning and convinces you to stay there forever. Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest steel magnates of his time, understood this with deadly clarity. Schwab worked under Carnegie, not because he was the most skilled man in the room, but because he had the fire to endure pressure most men avoided. When production quotas weren't met, when tensions rose in the ranks, Schwab didn't hide behind reports or delay action. He walked directly into the furnace of the problem and stayed there until a solution appeared. Why? Because he didn't seek comfort, he sought growth, and he understood that growth and comfort are enemies. That's the lesson here. Pain is not punishment. It's preparation. It means you are no longer living on the level of the man you used to be. You are stepping into something higher, something heavier. And the muscles of your mind, your will, and your character are breaking and reforming under the strain. That's not failure. That's formation. And here's what the average man misses. When the pain increases, they slow down. They justify quitting. They say things like, maybe this isn't meant to be. But the few, the very few who rise, they take pain as the confirmation that their growth has begun. Let me tell you about Thomas Edison. Edison was not born into brilliance. He was not the most naturally gifted thinker. But he had something rare, tolerance for discomfort. 10,000 times he failed to produce a working light bulb. 10,000 times. Not 10, not 100. 10,000. Now imagine that. Imagine the mental pressure, the financial stress, the public ridicule, the internal doubt, and still, he moved forward. When asked why he didn't give up, he said something the weak-minded couldn't understand. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Now pause. Reflect. That is not a man running from pain. That is a man who embraced it so fully, so relentlessly, that the pain became irrelevant, just part of the process. And if he could do that, with the world doubting him, with nothing but setbacks in his hands, what excuse have you? You are not too tired. You are too comfortable. You are not broken. You are being broken open. You are not stuck. You are being called to move with more force than ever before. So here is what I demand of you in these moments when the going gets hard. Do not soften. Do not retreat into logic. Do not disguise your fear as taking a break. Lean in. Lean in so far that fear loses its footing. Lean in so hard that comfort can no longer hold you, because the man who presses forward while in pain becomes the man who cannot be stopped when strength returns. Say this now with your chest. Pain does not weaken me. It sharpens me. Comfort is not my goal. Growth is. When it gets hard, I go harder. This is the turning point, not in your work, not in your environment, in your identity. Because from this point forward, pain will no longer be your reason to stop. It will be your reason to rise. Shall we continue? If you were to look at the man you admire, the one whose resolve never shakes, whose decisions are final, whose movements feel inevitable, you might think he was born that way. But you would be wrong. He was not born unbreakable. He became unbreakable through one thing: repetition. Not talent, not luck, not even brilliance. Repetition. Let me tell you something most men will never grasp. Your identity, that voice in your head that tells you who you are, is not permanent. It is a pattern. And patterns can be rewritten, rebuilt, reinforced. If you do it long enough, if you speak it with enough emotion, if you act on it with enough consistency, the old self falls away and a new one is born. This is not inspiration, this is engineering. Let us return to Henry Ford, a man who had little formal education, few early advantages, and no immediate success. But Ford repeated one thing more than anything else: belief. He said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That was not a clever quote for a poster. That was the bedrock of his being. He did not repeat limitations. He repeated possibility.